Greg is back. Jesus and the Apocalypse. History is a Lie, episode number 5 in his timeline. This is a long one. It's 42 minutes. This won't be the last time it's a long one, but it's one of the longest ones we have left. We have about 3 or 4 more that are like this. I look down in the comments and he says, "I love you all. The series is like listening to a homeless guy on the street corner rant, and I love it." And Greg exclaims, "Next episode, I am literally starting with the end is near." But he believes it earnestly. Uh-oh. Okay, let's see where this goes. Jesus and the Apocalypse, History's a Lie, Armoured, Skeptic, let's go.
The Giza Plateau is the most complex historical site on the planet. Yes, physically complex, with the impressive size of the pyramids, the architectural precision and mathematical principles incorporated into their design, and the
2 things I'm noticing. Number 1 is he didn't scrub his audio so I can hear like a fan in the background. Number 2 is how do you decide something is complex? Like how do you rate complexity?
layout matching the stars of the constellation Orion. But it's also the center and origin point of several cultures, religions, traditions, and technologies. The ancient name for Giza was Kemet, which is where we get the word chemistry. I really hope that you've watched the rest of the Tinfoil Helmet series by now, otherwise a lot of this video is just going to go right over your head. But remember, this is just for fun. Don't take this too seriously. I'm just spinning together a little bit of wizardry and magic for your entertainment. But
Okay, so I'm going to remember you said that, and by the time I get to episode 17... the end of episode 17, I want you all to remember this. We've already seen this. Some of you have already seen this. You know where this ends. If you haven't seen this, okay, bet. It's just for fun. It's just for fun. He's going to be fine. Everything's fine.
a lot of what I discuss in this series is true, and it's fun to think about these things in new ways. But if you've gotten this far in the playlist, you must agree by now that there are some pretty enigmatic things about history.
No.
And it's totally fair for us to ask at this point.
Come on, dude. It's just a joke. Please hear me out, though.
Is history a lie? So far, I've shown you a lot of physical examples of strange things throughout history and pieced them together for you in sort of a meaningful way. But wouldn't it make more sense to understand the mindset and the religion of the cultures that actually built those things? This is probably going to be the strangest video in the series because it's going to tie together a lot of really abstract concepts from several different cultures. However, I believe that this is the video that I'm the most confident about. In my Tesla video, I described my theory about a specific building complex layout that we see throughout history.
He was pretty confident about that. He literally declared that he was smarter than Tesla in it and had fixed, well, he lampshaded that of course he's not, but he is.
Two buildings, a fountain and a pillar, with a park in the middle, that were able to conduct some level of electricity. A theory that I feel I demonstrated is likely true. In that video, I referred to those complexes as parks, because that's what we call them today. But that's not what the ancient people called them.
The ancients.
The ancients called them gardens. The ionized air and ionized water that I hinted promoted good health would also promote rich crops and bountiful harvests. The reason why the Freemasons and occult groups venerate the pyramids is because all of these gardens around the world are based on the design of the Giza Plateau.
The fertile fucking Washington Monument? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? There ain't no goddamn crops in the capital.
But the Giza Plateau is not just the inception point of culture and technology. The Giza Plateau is where it all began. Giza was the Garden of Eden. Did I just casually reveal the location of the Garden of Eden in the intro of my video? Yep, that's the kind of video you're in for today, so you better strap in because I got a lot of information to throw at you. Welcome back to Tinfoil Helmet.
He's such a dork. He's such just like a dummy. It's wild to me how badass he thinks he is.
Göbekli Tepe is an extremely important site. It represents the inception point for civilization. It's where farming and complex architecture were developed by humans. Or maybe we were taught by some sort of giant. It appears as if there was some sort of giant venerated at the site.
Nope.
Perhaps even worshipped. But the site also seems to represent a turning over point. I alluded to some of the carvings describing a cataclysmic event. Well, if this is Scorpio, then this is the constellation Cygnus.
So when DC first legalized weed, people had grown way too much and were leaving just patches of it around the city and libraries and at universities. It was kind of funny, not gonna lie. Glad you know that Washington Monument's fault. It was the Washington Monument's fault for generating the electromagnetic field that caused the weed to grow. That's true.
Also known as the Northern Cross. Often depicted as a bird, she seems to be holding a large ball, maybe an egg? What if this represents the Great Phoenix? The flaming bird god that dies and comes back to life as its own child, sacrificing itself in fire to give life to its egg. This art is depicting the same kind of celestial event that the Book of Revelation describes as the dragon. I would never argue that the Bible is true or that it's historically accurate, but I've come to the inescapable conclusion that there is truth in there. There is history in there.
Yeah, of course. Human people wrote it. That's. It's not mystical, but I venerate it as such. Okay, cool.
Events, places, rulers, cultures, and names that they use for different kinds of people, like classes of people, like the sons of God, the sons of Cain, the messenger angels, the Nephilim.
Yeah, I don't believe it though.
I don't think that these were made-up terms for non-existent characters. I'm convinced that these were terms that they used to describe real people. Many of them would have been considered different shaman or priest classes that had a greater connection to God, basically. Obviously, many of them were considered to be gods themselves. Later, they would have become the emperors or god kings of our societies, convinced that they were descended from the gods themselves, or the fish people, or the dragon people, or the lion people. But they all would have been related to the Homo Denisovin in some way. If you've been watching the series or listening to my podcasts, then you know my theory that
this motherfucker has podcasts I gotta listen to as well. I'm good.
These god kings were different species or hybrid species of humans. DNA recently recovered from Denisovin Cave proves that sapiens cohabitated and interbred with Denisovin and Neanderthal around 30,000 years ago. They likely produced a wide variety of hybrid offspring, many of which continuing to procreate for thousands of years. And with deviations over time, this would explain the many different names for the many different kinds of hybrid humans that existed back then. And like I described, they were forced to interbreed with sapiens. So over time, their heads began to shrink, and they began to look more and more.
What did that say?
With sapiens. So over time, their heads began
to shrink is an inside joke. You have to be a conehead to get it.
to shrink, and they began to look more and more like normal humans. But there's an ancient story that's told over and over again in multiple cultures, religions, myths and legends, in ancient literature and plays, and even in modern film, and it's referred to as the hero's journey. And that is exactly the story that the Giza Plateau is trying to tell us.
A person trying to accomplish a goal, and then they do. And along the way, they have difficulty accomplishing the goal. Wow.
tying the green god Osiris to the layout of the stars 12,000 years ago.
Is that chode? Is that a little chode there? It's pretty cool.
It serves as a time capsule to the Younger Dryas event, showing when we started all over again after the world almost ended. This was the massive global cataclysm that knocked out Atlantis, the flood of the Bible. This is a story that's mirrored in multiple religions around the world. But what's crazy is that I found themes that were universal across all cultures, suggesting that the people back then witnessed some sort of massive celestial event, a war in the heavens. And I'm convinced that whatever the people saw in the sky back then is tied to the disaster that happened here on Earth.
Can you imagine large swaths of people without any cultural interaction whatsoever experiencing similar natural events on Earth and describing them similarly? Like a meteor shower. Could happen anywhere. Like, an electromagnetic storm, like a fucking regular storm with, like, red lightning, like a tornado, like a hurricane, like, I don't know, anything, ball lightning. Shit's wild, dude. We still don't know all about it. I don't know why multiple people having flood stories is interesting to you. Like, they don't all have them at the same day. Like, they just have them in general. There's no evidence of, like, a one-day flood or same-day flood. Like, whatever, man. I have no idea why you think, there's thousands and thousands of years that could have happened. Like, literally every day there's probably a flood on Earth somewhere, right? Like, even a little one.
That was awesome. I can't prove today that Giza is the Garden of Eden. If you want more of my thoughts...
Can I ask something about the voice you do, Greg? Why? Why are you down here? Why are we doing the Garden of Eden down here? I don't think it sounds better. I think it makes you sound like in fact, mine sounds better than you. You have to make more fun of him? What do you mean? No. I will engage with him seriously.
Thoughts on that idea, you'll have to listen to my podcast about it. The newest stuff that we consider ancient Egyptian comes from the dynastic Egyptians. They're the ones who built most of the simpler structures with smaller stones or brick. They covered the original Sphinx with brick to make it look like a lion, and made the head a human face. The paradox that we see here is that the further back in time we go, the more complex and more impressive the construction seems to be. This is something that I'm not 100% sure about, but a lot of people think that because the Giza Plateau has elements that date back 12,000 years, that the pyramids must be that old as well, but I don't think so. I think the layout is 12,000 years old, but the pyramids were built much later with preserved knowledge. They rebuilt the Garden of Eden in its original glory. It's a monument to heaven, a monument to the triple God, or what we now would call the Trinity.
There's three pyramids in Giza because they were to the Trinity. That's right. They were referencing the Trinity. Yep. Sorry, Egyptians. This one's about Christ.
The limestone portion of the pyramids dates back 5,000 or 6,000 years at the oldest. I think that the foundations of the pyramids are what date back 12,000 years. Remember, I showed you the Menkaure pyramid is built on top of a much older foundation that's clearly Atlantean-era construction. But what about the Khufu pyramid? The Great Pyramid, the one that's right in the center of the Earth? What's the secret behind that one? Well, that structure is built on solid limestone bedrock, but the natural foundation is shaped like a hill or a mound. Hills and mountains were the preferred locations to communicate with the gods during the Neolithic Age, and even before that. When you enter the top of the foundation through what looks like a drain hole, you'll find this little cubby space where the walls are lined with sand and pebbles. A stark contrast to the precision engineering that we see in the rest of the structure. I believe that this was the hole that the shaman would climb into to communicate with the gods after taking his happy juice.
What? His happy juice?
Then there's the well room in the basement, a chamber and corridor carved into solid stone. This space too looks completely different from the rest of the structure.
I think it had to do with like air flow.
The room seems like it's chiseled away haphazardly, like they didn't care at all how it looked. Then there are these amorphous blobs of stone in the middle of the room. I think that this is the original well for the original garden built tens of thousands of years ago. This decaying room is the ruins of a truly ancient temple. But what about the constellation Orion, the green-faced god Osiris who the Egyptians tied to the layout of the Giza Plateau? Plateau. Osiris.
Yeah. See, you're doing a thing. Baritone? You can do better, baritone. I think it's just cringe.
Just like Jesus, is a god of death and resurrection. He was chopped up into pieces by his brother Set and then reassembled by his wife. However, his reproductive organ had to be replaced with a golden phallus.
True. If my dick got removed in a freak accident, I think I would get a golden dick.
So just like the Conehead video, the religion has an emphasis on the phallus. That is represented in the stars, in the constellation Orion. If you'll notice, the Orion Nebula between his legs gives a golden glow. Gilgamesh, too, is a representation of Orion, sometimes depicted with a sword angled across his waist, representing Orion's belt, and a tassel between his legs, like the golden member of Osiris. The giant Gilgamesh often represented holding a lion, like the depictions of the constellation Orion. Again linking Orion to the constellation Leo, making the same reference to the 12,000 year ago mark as the Giza Plateau. The battle between Orion and Leo being a key to the cataclysm that occurs in that time period. This image is reversed, but Gilgamesh also holds one weapon.
The constellation describes an earthen conflict. I'm suspicious. Suspicious of that.
Above his arm, again like the constellation. Osiris was later succeeded by his son Horus, who also has parallels to that same archetype. Horus created Sekhmet, the lioness goddess, tasked with destroying things, who later became
You ever notice that conspiracy theory stuff always has this sort of like same... Here's a bunch of, like, things that I can list. And then because I listed a bunch of things and I know where they're at, I now have showed you that I'm intelligent. And because I've showed you that I'm intelligent, the unintelligent thing I'm about to say, gloss over it. Because I remembered these historical references, but that they are tied to some fucking Jesus revelation apocalypse story. Ignore that. That's actually really dumb because I said other smart stuff just before that. A common tactic.
a protector goddess. A character that transformed, as it were. This time is more poignant, as Horus is technically a sun god figure, and Sekhmet links him to a lion, just like the constellation Orion. Christians have their own trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus was even referred to as the Lion of Judah. Egypt has Osiris, Horus, and Isis, and the Hindu tradition, or at least one of the trinities that they represent, is Shiva, Parvati, and Ganesh. It gets complicated because there are several different trinities and each god has different manifestations, but Parvati is represented with a tiger or often a lion. But my favorite version of her is called...
Oh, but you skipped over the best part. A tiny elephant fella. Like a little four-armed tiny elephant guy who's just hanging out and he's petting the lion. See how he's holding the mane? Also feet, just saying. Nice.
Presented with a tiger or often a lion. But my favorite version of her is called Durga, and she's a protector goddess. Her protector form has multiple arms, again represented with a lion. A lot of parallels with Sekhmet. Durga also has a destroyer form known as Kali. Kali also has multiple different forms, one of which being a pregnant woman with a trident and lions. Do you get it? These kinds of images are...
I don't get it. There's lions. It's like seeing Spider-Verse characters, and they're in spiders stuff. You're like, you get it? Spiders. I mean, yeah, there's... They all have lions? Is that what you want me to get? There's all spider guys? Okay. Cool.
Are just absolutely saturated, layered with meaning. But what do they mean? And how do they tie back to the apocalypse? Our ancestors were obsessed with describing celestial movements as the stories of gods and the heroes of old. And most of these stories have endured throughout history in one form or another. Arguably, Christianity started with the Apostle Paul going around describing Jesus's events in heaven. There are tons of gods of death and rebirth across multiple cultures, and people have...
The Human Die, thank you so much for interrupting this for 28 months. Thank you for the Prime. If you too would like to interrupt, subscribe immediately.
Argued that that old pagan version of that god came first.
Pagan.
And then when Christianity came along, the Roman Catholic Church used it as a veneer to cover up their pre-existing pagan religion. And that's why there's such a similarity. The Christ is a copy of this green-faced god. But I've heard Christians argue that Satan counterfeited the Messiah story, knowing that a real Messiah would one day come along, making it too confusing to know which was the real one. Christians are pretty stubborn when it comes to understanding cultures outside of their own. But they can't deny that the deeds and events surrounding their Messiah perfectly fit this pre-existing archetype. But maybe both sides of that argument are wrong. Maybe they all represent the same person. Maybe they're all talking about the same thing. Or multiple appearances of the same thing. What if what the people described in the Bible was a reoccurrence of what happened 12,000 years ago? See,
Jesus.
If we want to see the beginning, we have to go way back. Way back to the prototypical character that started it all. Though it's debated exactly where he originated, it seems as if he was worshipped all over Eurasia in prehistoric times. And we call him the Green Man. There's no way of knowing exactly how far back he goes, or if he had a real name. but there were clearly multiple versions of him throughout history. Made of bark, leaves, flowers, thorns, antlers, or horns sometimes, he holds a golden snake of death and rebirth. The narrative obviously tied to nature, dying in the winter and coming back to life in the spring. A later version sees him as a villain, the Green Knight. This is where we notice our first indication.
The Green Knight isn't a villain. The Green Knight is a metaphor. Mostly in the old story for like duty and stuff. But in the A24 movie, you should watch The Green Knight. It's actually a really good movie. I kind of want to watch it again. What's the Green Knight available on? Green Knight. You can only rent it. Wait, Fubo. You can watch it on Fubo. I don't know what that is.
Of role reversal as well. I get the impression that each culture represented the story differently because they didn't understand what they were seeing in the sky. There's clearly a hero and a villain, but sometimes an element that seems to describe the hero in one story describes the villain in the other. Sometimes green means good, and sometimes green means bad. The story of the Green Knight sees a giant green man barge into Sir Gawain's red domain, swinging an axe above his head in a pose identical to the constellation Orion, challenging Sir Gawain to a duel. In a swift move, Sir Gawain decapitates the Green Knight, defeating him. The Green Knight then picks up his head, says, "You've won this round, but I'll be back for you next year," and then leaves. Osiris is probably the most similar to that, having been chopped up into several different pieces by his brother. But I think that this represents how that culture spread across Africa, and then when the Sahara Desert dried up, all those cultures came back together as one cohesive unit again.
It's wild. Like, that story is so different. Like, the Green Knight story specifically is so different. Like, he cuts the head off and he doesn't say, "I'm going to come back for you," or anything like that. And he's certainly not a Jesus character, the Green Knight. Like, this is just like really bad stretch. This is terrible. The Green Knight is like, you're gonna have to fucking kill me, dude. You're gonna have to kill me. We're gonna have to fight. We're gonna have to throw down. And Gawain goes on a whole journey, and it's about like duty versus like your fucking honor and what you ought to do, what you not. What, like, Gawain's more of a Jesus character than the Green Knight is in this thing, but he's not a good character necessarily. Although maybe in the original he maybe is like actually I am a virtuous knight, sort of. It's a chivalry story during the chivalry era. He gets tempted by, like, I don't want to spoil it. You should watch the movie. It's really good. But he gets tempted on the way. He has some ups and downs. He has an adventure. The movie is way better than the story, because it is a different take on the concept of this, more modern take. It is, what's the word I want to use? It's one of those movies that's like, we're doing art, and it's art. It's very good. Barry Keoghan's also in it. Very good actor.
Clearly, the micro-narrative of the Green Man is the cycle of nature, the death and rebirth of foliage and animals.
Right. So accepting your fate is part of, like, the Green Man's situation and the Green Knight's situation in that story. And that is not what the Jesus narrative is. The Jesus narrative is like let's get to heaven, dude, and then we're going to burn this shit. Get to heaven, we're going to burn this shit later. It's all going to change for the better. Green Knight, the idea is that, like, you know, we're fucking mortals. It's a really good movie. Check it out.
But what if there's a macro narrative to this story?
Why can't I think of the main actor's name? He does a fantastic job. Dev Patel.
If it represents something greater, a more ominous death and rebirth cycle that happens with our planet. Something that's so difficult to remember that we had to code it into our most popular story, the hero's journey. What exactly is so important about 12,000 years ago that we have to keep remembering it? Why do we keep telling this story over and over again?
Because it's the human experience. It's the human experience to want to achieve goals and to have obstacles in the way of them. And so it's incredibly relatable. It's anthropomorphized. Like, what? This is like literary. You take a Lit 101 class, my dude, and like listen and just don't try to apply it to your fucking theories. Like just in general, like it's human. That's it. And he'd be like, "Why is it human nature?" Because we've evolved to struggle on this planet. And we're social, and that's like, what do you mean? It's our experience. Like, it's just our experience in general. Trying to do stuff is hard. You ever done stuff? Man, telling stories about trying to do stuff is hard.
I love riddles. That's probably why I got so stuck on the riddle of the Sphinx. What
do you mean I'm quiet? All right, I'll give you a little more juice, but I think it's you.
Couple for you. They're pretty easy.
Maybe he's
Who
louder.
am I? If you ask
You mean when he's on, he's louder?
my followers, they'd say
that's by design.
That I'm a very special boy.
I can turn him down.
But if you ask me, I simply feel like I am. Okay, I got another one. It's a little bit harder. There was a man sitting on a street corner wearing a mask that read, "The King with Nothing." Someone walked up to this man, lifted his mask, and recognized that he was actually the king of everything. But the man put his mask back on and disappeared into the crowd. Why would he do that? Alright, I got another one that we can actually answer in this video.
A riddle?
What the hell is this keyhole shape that the Sphinx makes? And what does this have to do with the apocalypse? The green god's death and rebirth, being a metaphor for vegetation, is tied in also with the stories of Christmas and Easter. But that's just the micro-narrative. The meta-narrative parallels that story, and I think that Giza proves that the death and rebirth of the entire Earth is tied to the Green Man, to the massive cataclysm that happened 12,000 years ago, the story of the Great Phoenix. So here's my logic, and I think you'll agree. By creating a layout at the Giza Plateau depicting the Green Man, and then tying it to that specific event that happened 12,000 years ago, they're saying that the Green Man also represents the death and rebirth of the entire planet. The hero's journey is about that specific apocalyptic event. At first I thought that all of these stories were talking—
What? That's not... That is you have to fucking just make that narrative be a thing. There's nope. Nope.
About that specific event, that one time, 12,000 years ago. But I have a theory that each culture also has separate stories that are very similar, talking about lesser events that happened after that, where there's either similar characters with different names, role reversals, or the same god but doing a completely different thing, representing the same basic idea. Here's where we have to trust artists' renditions of these characters. If you've seen the Da Vinci Code, I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's a perfect example of the kind of coding that I'm talking about in art. Now, the hero's journey has a ton of elements, lots of things to juggle. It's basically impossible to get all of them into a single 90-minute movie. However, you may have noticed that Jesus is usually depicted wearing red and blue. Sometimes he wears just one or the other, depending on the context. Like in this picture, he's wearing blue, and Satan—
The pictures that people have drawn is my evidence. But like this would have been drawn fucking thousands of years after, Greg. Like at least 1,000. Also, he's trying to like hold his dick. That is sad.
Is red. This is depicting the same sort of confrontation, though. But red and blue are prominent colors in multiple religions, as well as green, gold, purple. We'll get to those later. But color plays an important role in these stories. I know that this sounds silly, but the colors of his robe represent the colors of the sky. The adversary, the destroyer, the dragon, the phoenix, whatever you want to call it. When it's here, it literally turns the entire sky red. And I don't mean like it glows red or it's like a sunset. I mean, it's a dramatic, drastic, dense red.
He's full on into this is how the world ends shit, by the way.
And it undulates and dances because our sky is being pelted by highly electromagnetically charged plasma, likely from our own sun. We have an example of this happening culminating in a dramatic episode in August of 1859 known as the Carrington event. This was when the Earth was pelted by multiple, rapid, highly charged solar flares. And I think that the Carrington event holds a clue or a hint as to what the ancient people were seeing in the skies 12,000 years ago. Everything I described with the undulating red sky really happened in 1859. That was real. They got off easy back then. The worst that happened were telegraph lines were highly charged and it disrupted communications for a while. But if it happened today, it would not only knock out our entire satellite network, it would blast all of our technology. We'd be back in the 1800s overnight. But even though Jesus wears red and blue, he clearly represents the green man. So if the great dragon
clearly represents the green man. How is that clear? What? Add hell, pray from your... Hey, if you have ads, that's because you haven't subscribed. I know they can't hear me. Only the subscribers can hear me. I'm just preaching to the choir, that's all.
Or the destroyer or the phoenix or whatever is the red
that's why.
Flaming thing.
Well, right.
What is the green thing? What does the green man represent? The Aurora Borealis.
The green man is the Aurora Borealis. Okay.
It's so obvious. Yeah. The green man is the Earth's electromagnetic field, protecting us from solar events. Atheist author Richard Carrier suggests that the four Gospels were written in Greek play format, a hypothesis that I fully agree with. Now, Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, but that hardly denotes some sort of connection with nature. However, John the Baptist parallels Jesus in the Gospels. He's literally...
What is the context of this video? He's a fucking conspiracy theorist.
Described as a wild man. He lives in the woods. He wears animal pelts. So when he anoints Jesus as the Son of God, that's visual language saying the guy that looks like the green man says this other guy is the green man.
Okay, why would the Gospel of John have reliable information on solar events from 12,000 years prior? Greg. That's all I'd like to know. You're appealing to the fact that it was in the Bible as some form of like reliable information giver, and I think we agree that that's not the case. But like, there's real stuff in it. Yeah. And the guy that you're referencing, John the Baptist, that's fucking not John the Baptist, fucking John the Gospel of John. What? Come on, bro. Was thinking about you, Jake, wondering if I watched you stream lately. Here I am, Nexus. I thought you'd been here. Haven't you been here?
That's supposed to give him credibility. That's what's being communicated through the visual language of the story. And then John the Baptist, if you remember, his story ends with him being beheaded.
Yeah.
Exactly like the Green Knight.
The Green Knight is a story that was later... And other people have had their heads cut off. Goliath isn't the green man, is he? If you get your head cut off, are you the green man? Hello, Greg? Hello? This guy had, like, honeybees and shit. He was stinky, and he's a Baptist. He wasn't anything like the green man. Or the Green Knight. The Green Knight was like, there's no fucking saving you. You will die. You're dead. I'm coming for you, bro. You're dead. And this is like all about rebirth. I don't know, bro.
Before the great apocalyptic event that's being represented through the crucifixion of Jesus, there's an earlier altercation where Satan...
Yeah, get away from me, Jesus! That's what he's saying right there. Because he's a villain. And that's what villains sound like. And Jesus was like, "Be gone, Satan!" Because he's like Charlton Heston or something.
Tests...
No, you can't cover his feet. TOS is spelled... Why do you think if you say TOS phonetically, it's just toes? Because toes are within TOS. It's totally fine. It's in the name. You can show toes. In fact, that's what it's for, is to exclusively see toes. You missed the chick tracks? If you missed the chick tracks, you should check out the fucking D&D. If you like me doing voices. Let me doing voices. That wasn't shit. That wasn't goddamn nothing.
Jesus at the top of the earth. You get it? At the top of the earth. At the North Pole, where the Aurora Borealis is. The great dragon briefly tests the Green Man. There's an early solar flare. It's a warning sign that the great event is imminent. And there are several hints that Jesus' death represent the apocalypse, like in Matthew.
So now Greg is prepping because he knows a solar flare is going to take out the world. He just knows that that's what's... He's prepping because a solar flare is going to just destroy the world.
It says that as soon as he dies, the earth opens up and people rise from the dead. Now, in Norse tradition, their apocalypse is known as Ragnarok. But there's also an earlier event that happens in Odin's story, where just like Jesus, he's spread out, cross-legged against a tree, and he's stabbed in the heart with a spear because Odin wants to experience death. And Odin also has a companion, the head of the god of wisdom. Again, a parallel to the Green Man. Thor also represents the Green Man as well as Odin. If you imagine Thor...
Get your head cut off, you're the Green Man now. That's just straight up. He's like, yes. When I asked earlier, he's like, of course. Yes, that is the Green Man when you get your head cut off. Obviously. Because the electromagnetic field is going to save us from Thor. No, Thor's protecting us because he's a protector.
Or wielding his hammer above his head, just like the constellation Orion. Also, he has the Belt of Strength, the Belt of Orion. Gilgamesh also fought a giant winged, horned dragon monster figure, as seen in this relief art.
You get to represent the Green Man. You get to represent the Green Man. We are all the Green Man. We are the Green Man. Thank you for the 100 biddies. No pickles. By the way, I saw some of you saying, oh, I got ads earlier. There's only one way not to get ads, and that is to become stamped with the cob. Is to become 100% satisfied by the cob.
Depicting him in the pose of Orion. Notice that he's also carrying trident weapons. Tridents represent the 3 stars of the belt.
That's right.
I'm going to get more into the
The belt is the belt. Tridents are belts now. If you're headless, you're green. Even if you're red, when you get your head cut off with the blood, it's green. But also the blood is red, so if it's ever not the Green Man, it can be the red blood of the sky, of the death of the world from the solar flare. If you're the sun, you're the death of the world, but you're also the god of the green, the Jesus figure, because you're the sun. It's good. Any sun cults that worship the sun are worshiping it to keep it sated, to keep it from putting the fire on them. That's right.
Details of what's literally happening above us during the apocalypse, but what people are seeing essentially is like a red flamey thing and a massive electrical storm in the sky. And this would likely focus on the North Pole, where the cross star is. Zeus not only can turn into an
Zeus.
eagle, a lightning eagle, that sounds familiar, but he also fought Typhoeus. Typhoeus is the personification of volcanic forces, but he's represented as a winged god with multiple tentacles or tails. The tentacles and tails represent different arcs of plasma coming down and attacking the Earth from space.
Do they? Do the tentacles in the snake person represent tentacles of plasma attacking the Earth? Seems like a stretch, in my opinion. IMO.
The multiple legs.
Is that man puka shell necklace? I'm in. Look at this. Wow. Arms of people. Let's go. Getting after that shit. Sheesh.
Or tentacles of Cthulhu. So picture it.
Cthulhu.
Zeus,
Yeah,
the
that's right.
lightning god, fighting a giant winged tentacled fire god in the sky.
What am I hearing? You found a cute animal?
That's the apocalypse. It's often
She walked into the living room and...
I was just talking to the boy.
The boy!
He was really cute because he had his head on the pillow off the edge of the couch. I walked by and he looks at me like this. He's got his
Hunkin'.
cheek,
Why you hunkin'?
He's just looking
Come
up
here.
at me.
Come here. Why you hunkin'? Oh, goodness. Now Cthulhu. Yeah. Yeah, Cthulhu. It's happening. Don't worry about it.
implied that the dragon or the phoenix figure has multiple tails or tentacles. That may be plasma forming thick, structured arcs, like the effect that you get off of a Tesla coil, but bumped up to the planetary scale, almost as if the sky looks like the inside of a plasma ball toy. The hero's journey and the Green Man are represented in pop culture as well. The hero's journey will never die. Superman wears red and blue, exactly like Jesus.
Someone in chat literally goes, "Is Superman Jesus?" Yes. The answer is yes. You're right. You were right. Every story is Greg's fucking head theory. Goku, true. Fucking One Punch Man.
Zack Snyder hammered it into our heads in Man of Steel that Superman represents Jesus. We get it, dude. We get it. And Zack Snyder was right that that's not an S, but it's also not a winding river. Though that might be a reference to the River Nile, it's actually a snake.
I'm pretty sure it's an S. Pretty sure it's an S for Superman. Pretty sure when they made it for Superman logo. Do they have the one? Do they have the one where they show all the logos? Yeah. Do you see this one right here, bro? Look. 1938. I mean, it's pretty obviously a fucking S. You tell me this is always just a fucking snake, dude? The closest one to a snake is 1940, and honestly, that looks like a little bit like Nazi Superman. I don't know if it's coincidence. They had Nazis on the mind, though. Sheesh. Anyway. You gotta figure it out.
It's a pyramid and a snake. And the pyramid is pointing down, which implies that he's an earthbound god. As in, he's Jesus. The snake is not only the same snake of death and rebirth that the Green Man holds, but the snake is the goddess Wojat. The Wojat eye is often referred to as the Eye of Horus, literally represents death and rebirth, as well as wisdom. And the snake goddess Wojat is a
He put the Superman logo next to the fucking Wojat. Not the Wojak. The Wojat. You're on some bullshit.
protective deity that defends Egypt. I bet you didn't know any of that about Superman.
Breaks character.
Spider-Man also wears red and blue. His webs represent the Earth's electromagnetic field catching...
Why does he call it... He's still on... It's so interesting that 1 year ago, he's still in this denial phase of like, I actually don't believe that this is all going to come to an end. And then he really ramps up on this, like... Sheesh.
Plasma. But if you look at the model of the Earth's electromagnetic field...
Hey, are you making anything? No. Oh, what are you doing?
Huh?
Are you cleaning up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
in action, you notice how it takes the shape of a
Being not useless.
spider? Spider-Man is a reference to the Green Man.
I
And
was joking earlier. I was joking. Stop. I brought up Spider-Man for no reason. Stop it. Are you fucking serious? Come on, dude. You can't Jake Stradamus me on this one. During the fucking... It's a conspiracy theory. I might actually be a psychic, Greg. And since I'm a real psychic that can predict your thoughts, you should believe me and just be, relax. Relax a little. Batman is the Green Man.
most of his
Batman.
villains are green.
Actual Jake is the Green Man. Corn is the golden sun within the green husk. We have to wrap the earth around the sun. That's how we'll do it. Dyson spheres.
Green Goblin is a green and purple smiling figure, like the Treasure Cat. He's just like the Joker. He fits the laughing man.
Fuck. He saw the movie. It's not Jake Stradamus here. It's Greg's the dumbass. Oh, fuck. McPlatypus. McPlatypus and Gnome Pickles and Dr. Gamble and a cheaper version SMG Hottie. Like literally monetarily cheaper, not like you're worse. You all got your little puns and jokes, you four. You gotta watch out for these four.
It has the juice.
Here's Buggy. Thanks for the 100 biddies. He's the Green Man. He's the Green Man. You're the Green Man. I'm the Green Man. Are there any more green men I should know about? Is this a reference? I've missed it.
Archetype perfectly. The laughing man is an esoteric concept. I think actually ties back to the laughing Jesus, a Gnostic version
Can I be the Rainbow Man? Yes.
of Jesus that existed
yours.
probably
Thank you,
well
for the 100
before the
biddies.
Roman Catholics got a hold of
Chat,
it.
you have momentum.
The Gnostics believed that while physically Jesus was being tortured on the cross, spiritually he was off in some cave somewhere laughing because it didn't mean anything. It was happening in the physical, but in the spiritual he was above it all. That's essentially what it means. The
Cool, man. Atomic Crouton, thanks for the 50 biddies. Green Man is people. That's right.
Catholics have a saint
Everyone's
that's
green,
a Joker as well.
and everyone is a
Saint
man.
Lawrence. He was actually martyred by the church. The
100%
Pope
men.
ordered his death, and he was cooked on a grill like a T-bone steak. His dying words were, "Flip me over. I'm well done on this side," which got roaring laughter from the audience of people there to watch a guy burn to death.
Yep.
Well, I found more than one example of St. Lawrence being
Yep.
I hope you very have a
Ambiguous Sam,
fantastic
thanks for
day.
35 months. We have momentum, Cobbs. Here's the 35 months. We do have momentum. And that's more of it. Thank you so much.
depicted alongside Mary Magdalene, the woman that Jesus married. That's not a coincidence. I think that the Treasure Cat smile, or the Joker smile, is representative of a crescent moon shape or a solar eclipse shape, because that seems to be depicted quite often alongside apocalyptic imagery. And imagine the ominous feeling you'd have when you see this big smiling figure in the sky over top of you while chaos is happening here on Earth. That'd be pretty terrifying. I know it's kind of crazy to think of the Joker as a depiction of Jesus, but obviously he is the Green Man.
I hope
Obviously.
you have a fantastic day.
Of course, obviously, the Joker's the Green Man. The Avant Gardener, thanks for the 5 months. Oh, Jesus, the Skeptic. Hello, Jake. Hello. Thank you and welcome. Chat, that's momentum. Look, you're very close. You're so close, in fact, that I'm gonna make sure I am ready. I'm gonna prepare myself, just in case.
Purple coat is a blending of red and blue. Purple is the color of chaos. And purple also just happens to be one of the
I need momentary peace for the Green Man.
colors of the Aurora
That's
Borealis.
not gonna get it.
In the Michael Keaton
Thanks for the
Batman
biddies, though.
movie,
50.
just like Jesus, Joker trolls the powers that be. He even hurts the banks by giving
You have a fantastic day.
Diamond Dynamo, 22 months. I don't really have anything to say, but wow, 22 months is a long time. It is. Thank you so much. 22 months,
to do.
chat. Can you believe it? Okay. Greg is talking about the Green Man. Everything's the Green Man. Sarah,
giving away free
Sarah, definitely cut around all that. And here we go. Spliced.
free money. When the Bat Jet appears in front of the moon, that's a representation of the Great Dragon.
Stop it.
Batman with his horns represents the devil.
Why is
This is the Mayan god of death.
That's the Mayan god of death. Batman. He was Batman all along. Let's go.
Batman is death. During this scene, Joker is spreading green gas across the city, representing the Earth's electromagnetic field. The Great Dragon descends down into the green fog. The Green Man defeats the Great Dragon, causing him to fall from the sky. But despite his victory, he still dies at the hands of the Great Dragon. And while his body lay there dead and motionless, he continues to laugh. And the latest Joker movie, the one that I love so much, obviously represents a lot of the same concepts. But the guy that plays the Joker...
Okay, the Joker movie, I like, but holy shit, dude. I like it because it's different, but man, it is... You only get to like that movie if you don't fucking absorb it into your personality. You can only like it at an arm's distance. You have to relax about it, man. Sheesh.
Joker, Joaquin Phoenix.
Yep.
His name is Joking Phoenix.
That's right.
I could do a whole episode about how Star Wars is about
Fucking stop.
the apocalypse, but just some examples. The lightsabers obviously represent the battle between red and blue, and in the end, when Luke fights Vader,
The battle between red and blue. That's right. This is giving me Vigilant Christian vibes. Remember that guy? Yes. Mario, the Vigilant Christian. Didn't he have a coke problem?
it's green. And then after defeating him with the green lightsaber, he then sacrifices himself for his father, allowing himself to be defeated by purple lightning. One way to describe the keyhole shape is a representation of the Alpha and the Omega. The pyramid shape on the bottom
That's me right there. Nope, down here.
half is the A, and the domed top half is an O. I know that this sounds dumb, but think of how many
Sigma male.
ways that this shape is incorporated into different things in pop culture and even religions. There are so many secret references to the Alpha and the Omega. Like a UFO beaming up a cow, the saucer is the Omega, and the beam is the Alpha.
a cloud raining a shit. Like when you squat and then you take a shit and it piles up into like a little coil. A dog taking a shit. He's these floppy little ears. Yeah. It's a mushroom cloud for sure. He's definitely going to say it's a mushroom cloud.
The Phoenicians too had their own Alpha and Omega keyhole symbol, which cleverly looked like an eye. I also like the Stairway to Heaven image. This even ties the Sphinx to the Jacob's Ladder concept. Some people even consider this a symbol of the rapture, something you might see in the sky pulling you up. It's also often depicted through a rising sun symbol. If you imagine the top half being the sun rising above the horizon, and the bottom half, the A, being light reflecting off of the ocean. But those are just ways that the symbol are cleverly integrated into art and religion. What does the symbol actually represent? This is the fun part. The green man is tied to fertility, a very important aspect of growing crops and raising livestock. Remember that the Giza Plateau is a garden. Osiris, the green god of the Garden of Eden, had a golden phallus, implying his ability to promote fertility. But Osiris's golden...
That's right. If your dick's gold, it's actually better for fertility than it is to not have a gold dick. That's true.
Phallus is an important element of the Giza Plateau story, and it ties together with the green man's golden snake of death and rebirth. Remember again how 12,000 years ago the Sphinx would point at the...
Is that a chode? Did you put the chode back up there? Little guy. He's cute.
Sun and Leo during the summer...
This is a golden dick.
Solstice, and at that same time the pyramids would line up with the constellation Orion. Well, the Sphinx pointed at Leo, but that's not what it was lined up with. Leo would have been several miles away. Look where the Sphinx is in orientation with the pyramids. The Sphinx lines up with the Orion Nebula.
It doesn't. In fact, this goes backwards. This is backwards. You would have to be like fucking over here. And you'd have to tilt the image. So. Did he do this for April Fools? Did he make this series for 3 years and then have a breakdown at the end of it about how the world's going to end in the solar flare he talks about in this video? For April Fools? No, he did not.
The Sphinx is Osiris's golden penis. The face of the Sphinx is the face of Osiris. That's the green man.
Looks like the OU shooting was just a rumor and it's a confetti cannon.
If you don't believe me, a perfect example of this is one of the oldest Greek...
Wait, hold on.
Osiris's golden penis.
That's right.
The face of the Sphinx is the face of Osiris.
That's right.
That's the green man. If you don't believe me, a perfect example of this is one of the oldest Greek and Mysian gods.
It is. It's a dick.
The god of gardens.
Yeah.
And do you see what prominent feature he displays?
No.
That's right.
What is it?
He has a silly hat. Fertility is the name of the game.
He subverted because I thought I was going to talk about the ding ding, but he didn't. He didn't talk about the ding ding. He talked about the hat.
Game. This is tied to that exact same fascination with the phallus that the Coneheads displayed in my Conehead video. They were absolutely obsessed with fertility and prowess.
They were obsessed with fucking. No way, dude. I mean, I've had some sex. I'm thinking about doing it again sometime. And you know, drawing dicks is funny. I guess the desk that I had in fucking 5th grade covered in dicks was actually an ancient artifact of significance and import. They couldn't have had a bunch of guys that were sitting around. They were sitting around their camp. Can you imagine this? Okay, you and the boys are sitting around. You've done all your chores. Literally, all you have to do is survive until tomorrow and eat yams. We're eating yams and surviving, sitting around the fire. You guys, I just had an idea, and then they're like, "What, bro?" And they're like, "You're letting it go out." And they're like, "Oh shit, sorry." Yeah. I was. What if
It has the juice?
What if we decorated with dick statues? Why, dude? Because we have dicks. the statues would do. Yeah, let's do it.
It has the juice?
Eating yams and clapping hands. That's right. Greeks and Romans, dicks were hilarious. Like, they associated huge cocks with stupidity and low class. And that's why I am a lower class man. Can you have yams for potato roll? Yes. In fact, I might have a sweet potato later.
And to just absolutely nail my point home, let's go to southern England, where there's an ancient Celtic giant.
His titties are off balance, though. Something happened to his titties. What happened to his titties, Greg?
On a hillside, they say is wrapped in mystery. What could it be? Who could have built it? This green giant happens to be wielding a weapon above his head, just like the constellation Orion. And just like the green god Osiris, just so happens to have a giant phallus that's pointing in the general direction of the summer solstice sun. You get it yet? Guys, you're looking at the green man.
Why was that so intense? You're looking at the green man. We're looking at him.
Scholars believe that the pyramids of Giza are mentioned twice in the Bible. Once as the mountains of the West, and again as the mountain of God. It's no wonder that the ancient people would have seen these structures as godly mountains.
The mountain of the West? The pyramids? Maybe.
Every ancient religion venerated mountains and hills and mounds, using them as the place to communicate with God. Like Mount Olympus, mountains are where the gods lived. The electricity that the pyramids generated was part of their religion, and as I described in the earlier video, the higher up that they could build a structure, the more electricity it could generate.
You know
so to decode the
you know how structures generate electricity in real life? His whole video. The electricity you get when you're high in the sky.
Meaning of the story of Babylon, which happens right after the flood, humanity...
It's actually the secret way that planes work, is they charge when they're going through the sky. They've been EV for years.
Humanity gathered in one place to build their own tower to reach heaven, basically dictating their own terms as to where God's throne was going to be. God punished them for this by destroying the tower and spreading humanity across the globe. Now, a little Bible tidbit for you Bible geeks out there. Deuteronomy 32:8. It says that after this happened, God separated the nations and the sons of Adam according to the number of the children of Israel. And that doesn't make any sense because Israel doesn't exist yet. Abraham hasn't even been born yet. So, turns out in the Dead Sea Scrolls, what it originally said was, God separated everyone according to the number of the sons of God. The sons of God were the Denisovin, the Coneheads. This is why the exact same story is told in every religion. The Bible is recognizing that this was the time that the Coneheads spread this story across the globe. So fast forward to the very end of Egyptian culture, right before its collapse at the end of the Bronze Age. The Phoenicians all of a sudden show up, and a lot of people attribute them to the collapse of Egypt, but that's not...
Oh my god. I just realized I know where that shitty font is from. It's from Transformers with extra triangles added on to be legally distinct. The font he uses for his title cards? All right. McPlatypus, you're going to have to go on the hunt and figure it out. I mean, this seems like a thing that you would do. Because you get very into that font. I hope the hunt goes well.
Not entirely true. But the Phoenicians are like, yo, guys, I love your language. It's so cool.
That's right.
But
I love your language.
Wouldn't
It's
it
so
be neat
cool.
that
You know how you hear that from people? Like, what the fuck, man?
instead of these intricate drawings, we replace them all with these easily sketchable lines so that we can write sentences extremely quickly and communicate so much more efficiently? So they create this new language. Egypt collapses. The Phoenicians slow motion walk away from Cairo while the pyramids explode in the background, rock music blasting as they're carrying their new language in a briefcase. But then they start traveling across the entire Mediterranean, even other parts of the globe. And they teach new languages to all of the cultures that they meet based on the original language that they created in Egypt, making a new distinct language for each individual culture. And a lot of things come along with language: religious concepts, philosophical concepts, the ability or inability to articulate complex concepts. I know what I'm about to say sounds silly, but I'm leaving it for the end because it's the most important part. Okay. This is the oldest letter in the alphabet. The Phoenicians called it the wow, or whoa. It's based off of the Egyptian hieroglyph of a bird, though it's quite the stretch to imagine that this is that same bird. Whereas the Egyptian looks like it's standing sideways, the Phoenician crane looks like it's flying vertically with its wings straight out.
Okay, now I need to see it next to his.
This is the Great Phoenix. There are literally a quadrillion depictions of the Great Phoenix in this pose. Sometimes a letter Y, sometimes a J. Guys, this is the exact same pose that Jesus is making on the cross.
That's right. He goes like this. Everyone knows Jesus goes like this. To assert salvation.
It has the juice?
This is Jesus up on the cross. You're saved, my dudes. You're saved, my dudes. Wow, you would say, because of the letter. Greg, as linguistics nerd, just let me say, keep my field of expertise out your mouth, boy. Wow. Whoa. But Greg, what are you talking about? Greg is a linguistics expert. Self-proclaimed.
He is the wow, and the epistemology of the meaning of...
It's the wow. We should have an Owen Wilson button. Wow. Owen, wow.
Gotta follow through.
What are you working on? Oh, wow. Hey, that's
Wow.
of words is really as simple as people saw something crazy and said, wow, whoa, look at that. And now when we draw that...
He's fucking for real. He's for real about the wow and the whoa. Oh, fuck. Greg, I don't think wow is... I don't think wow is a natural sound we make. Wow? I don't even know if we really say wow unless we mean wow. You know what I mean? Then we go like, whoa. Ah! What? I don't know, man. Wow? I don't know, bro. Wow is the name for the Phoenix. Let's go.
thing, we say, wow. The Star of Bethlehem was not just a sign of the Messiah. It was also a sign of the apocalypse. Every time the Messiah comes, the world recycles.
Every time the Messiah comes. Wow.
The entire story of the Messiah, from birth to death and rebirth, is the story of the apocalypse. But you're gonna have to follow up with me in part 2 to hear more of my thoughts about what actually happens during the apocalypse and a deeper dive into some of the symbolism behind it. Next time, we solve the riddle of the Sphinx.
Okay. Cool, man. He's gonna solve some Sphinx riddles. Let's see what the riddle of the Sphinx is. What is the riddle of the Sphinx? The riddle of the Sphinx. What is the riddle? What has one voice but goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? The wise Sphinx posed this riddle to the clever Oedipus. Guess the answer. It's a human being who crawls as a baby, stands on 2 legs as an adult, and walks with a stick in old age. Oh. Well, there it is. Oedipus fucking got it, dude. That's the Sphinx riddle. I think he means the keyhole butt thing. The butt penis keyhole. I don't know. He keeps talking like he's just like, why aren't you just like, man, I really think solar flares might be a problem. You know what I mean? Solar flares might be a problem. There's no reason for it to have affected people before us. He literally said, like, hey, of course the world didn't end before when they did that, so it was up there. Why would they have a fucking 12,000 year warning for the end of the world if they didn't fucking know anything would happen? Like, hello, dude? Oh, we better, for posterity, we better put fucking secrets up. I just don't buy it, man. I know that he shrugs off criticism by saying it's not that serious. But does he, or he did, does he still do that? He doesn't. He's blocked me. He blocked me, unblocked me, reblocked me. Anyway. Anyway, dude. I hope you're good, man. This is some wacky shit, though.